All right, so I was saying backstage that I think this conversation is going to be great because we have two really interesting people on stage who have these fascinating backgrounds. And I want to get into both of those, Kirby and Danielle, but I'd love for you to help us out here at the beginning about this meaning of sustainability. What is that, going beyond some of the environmental implications that we often think of, expanding that out to people and to all of the populations that you're trying to serve with your companies? How have you come to understand sustainability? Kirby?
Yeah, well, first, Emma, thank you for having us today. At Sweetgreen, we like to say that social impact and sustainability is really at the core of our business. And I think what's really interesting about us as a company is that, we were founded 12 years ago by 3 college students. And, what sets us apart is the way that we think about our supply chain and thinking about sourcing locally, in season, and being really thoughtful and intentional with our farmers. And so for us, when we think about sustainability, it's really right at the core of, every single ingredient that comes into our restaurant. So, we have an entire supply chain team that works directly with every single grower, every single supplier, to ensure that all of the food really meets our food ethos. And so we're measuring them on, metrics like sustainability, soil health, animal welfare, how they treat their workers and their farmers. And I just think, it kind of shows how sustainability and social impact really permeates into the business.
Danielle, what about you? What are those conversations like?
So we have this governing sort of value at L'Oreal. We say beauty for all. That's our really like the guiding North Star, our purpose. And our corporate sustainability strategy, which we launched in 2013, it's not just limited to energy, water, and waste. We really try to look at the full impacts across our value chain from a environmental and social perspective, and come up with very active programs and KPIs to make sure people are taken care of at every stage of the game. Ultimately, solving the climate crisis, we're doing that because we want to protect people, right? And I think that's, I say us as society at large. And so whether that's ensuring that all of our employees, no matter where they are in the world, have equal access to healthcare, social protection, training, or looking upstream across our value chain to women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses, veterans, people who have disabilities. How can we look at these marginalized or disenfranchised populations and help them access work through procurement? And then we have farmer level programs. People would be maybe surprised to know that 60% of our raw materials originate from the earth. And so we have active farmer level programs on over 20 of our key raw material ingredients. And I think the biggest one we have is in Burkina Faso with our shea butter, where I think 38,000 women have accessed work through that one ingredient alone. And so we're really holistic in the way we think about our impacts really broadly.
Wow, so both of you have described the ways that your companies think about this and how important it is at all levels of your company. I think for a word like sustainability, it can sometimes remain abstract or feel like corporate speak. And I wonder if for either of you at different points in your careers, there was a moment that you had that helped you really understand, helped it really click, why something like sustainability is a value and something that you wanted to work towards.
For me, when I first started at L'Oreal, I had been doing sustainability for about 10 years before that in the apparel sector. And one of the first meetings I had was with our head of plastics purchasing. His name is Matthew. And he walked into my office and he said, "I'm the head of plastics purchasing. Also, I hate plastic." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh, you're my person." And it turns out he's a diver. He's a scuba diver. And so he brings this sort of personal mission with him every single day, even as the plastics purchaser. And that conversation is just an example of all the different kinds of people throughout L'Oreal who are being empowered to work on this topic and really own it from their own values. How about you?
It's fantastic. when I joined Sweetgreen a year and a half ago, one of the things that I was blown away by was the way that our supply chain team works very closely and hand in hand with farmers. So it's not just ensuring that they line up with our mission and values, but it's also in terms of how we actually make our salads. So we have a value chain coordinator team that has those one-to-one relationships, and they were on a tour with a farmer, looking at some of the ingredients that we already source, and the farmer kind of pointed out a field of sunchokes and said, I have this whole field of sunchokes, no one wants to buy them, people don't know what they are. Our value chain coordinator took that back to our culinary team and said, hey, is there anything we can do with a sunchoke? Like, have we made a salad with a sunchoke? Of course we had not. But the culinary team took that input and they came up with what's now the miso bowl, and it has sunchokes, parsnips, carrots. They're all roasted. They have this incredible miso glaze, and it's just kind of reimagining salads and the ingredients that you can use, and knowing that sunchoke is something that's really good for the soil and something that was important for that farmer to grow just really kind of shows the 360 picture. And I think when we think about our teams, we think about that in the same way in terms of how do we ensure that our values are showing up with them. So we're very thoughtful and intentional around our policies and benefits that we provide to the team. Earlier this year, we announced 5 months parental leave for all employees, and so that hits at the corporate level as well as the store level, whether you're part-time, full-time, adoptive, foster parent, and it's just been something that has really resonated with our team.
Wow, and I'm going to take from your comments partially a call to action to go home and cook with sunchokes. So thank you for the inspiration tonight. Kirby, you haven't always worked in the private sector. You also spent a number of years working on the Let's Move initiative with former First Lady Michelle Obama. Yeah. And I wonder how that work to you feels connected to the work that you're doing at Sweetgreen, and maybe more specifically, what it's like to go from the public sector, from government work on these issues, to working on them in the private sector.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, my career in the Obama administration, both at the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the White House, was just, and will forever be one of those career highlights. But it has drastically, informed kind of my future career, and has certainly impacted my role at Sweetgreen. And I think I'm incredibly fortunate to be at a company that is led by founders that genuinely want to leave the planet better than they found it. And, I think that's very hard to find in corporate America. And so I've been able to take a lot of, the lessons that I've learned working on the Let's Move initiative into Sweetgreen. One of our big focuses over the next couple of years is our Sweetgreen in Schools initiative, which is something that we had established as a food education curriculum in 2010. And then with just earlier this year, we announced a national partnership with Food Corps to not only support their hands-on learning, like cooking and gardening, and get kids engaged in where their food comes from, to set them up for healthy eating habits and success for the rest of their lives, but also this audacious goal around reimagining the school cafeteria work and building on the years and decades of work that have gone into the space, and our ability to bring our lessons learned as a restaurant company into the cafeteria space, which there are 7 times as many cafeterias as there are McDonald's in the country. And so how can we as an innovative, fast casual brand, help inform that space as well?
That's fascinating how much continuity there is there. Mm-hmm. Danielle, in your work, you are in an industry that is full of packaging and wrappers mm-hmm. and little plastic cases. And you also came out of the fashion world, and that too is a big packaging heavy world. Mm-hmm. And I wonder just how you wrap your mind around the challenge that's presented with those kinds of expectations from consumers mm-hmm. and how things will be packaged, and how you can make a little bit of change incrementally with your work at L'Oreal to try to put a dent in some of that packaging overtake.
Yeah, packaging is one of these examples, or I will say waste, which is endemic also in the fashion industry, is an example of really, I tell people all the time, I love waste, I love garbage, because to me that's dollar signs. I can find ways to sell old bulk fabric and generate revenue, and all of these things, support young designers. That's programs that we implemented in my previous life. And with L'Oreal, I think the interesting thing about this, it's packaging issue, which seems like it's a corporate issue, but then when you look at the system and understand the system from recyclability to even procuring the raw materials to be able to integrate post-consumer recycled content into packaging, you actually see how broken the system is, right? And so it's an opportunity for companies that have big purchasing power, that have that scale, to sort of set a target, set that value, and then be able to almost create the economic infrastructure to support it, right? So we have a goal. We signed up to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation New Plastics Economy Pledge that by 2025, all of our packaging, God bless you, all of our packaging will be, I can hear you, will be compostable, refillable, and recyclable. And so that's work that's actively underway. And one of the ways we're doing that is looking at all of our shampoos and conditioner bottles, all of our packaging that is plastic. It's mostly PET plastic. And that's pretty ubiquitous in the recycling supply chain. And so figuring out how, okay, well, where can we source that from directly in the US? And we are in kind of a weird position because also other huge food and beverage companies are setting similar goals. So now these materials that were considered waste are actually really valuable. And so it's really these systems that are shifting just by taking this goal on of integrating post-consumer recycled content. In 2017, we saved 7,000 tons of virgin plastic.
Wow.
And so it's an enormous opportunity when you're working with corporations that have that global reach. With that comes a lot of opportunity for positive environmental and social impact.
Wow. So I want to remind you that we will take a few questions at the end of this session. So if you are thinking through questions, go ahead and put those into Slido, which you know how to use now. And we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. You know, something that strikes me, both of you are very thoughtful about the way that these kinds of initiatives can be not only good for the world, but also good for your companies. And I don't know that that's taken for granted at every company in America, that the corporate disposition is to say, this initiative will be expensive, time-consuming, complicated, expensive for our consumer. How have you thought through the pitch there about why it actually makes sense for companies to take these things on instead of sort of digging their heels in and being afraid of some of those costs?
Yeah,
Kirby?
well, I mean, I just say thank you every day that I'm at a company where the founders actually get it and care about this. I also think that being at a company that has that focus, you attract employees that care as well. And so as a mission and values driven company, you know, a lot of my people that I'm working with every single day, you know, most of whom are not on the social impact team, you know, they genuinely want to move the needle forward on all the issues that we care about. So whether it's our food education work in partnership with Food Corps or other nonprofits, or our food access work, you know, we work with local nonprofits across the country to double SNAP benefits, which not only increases the purchasing power of the individual, but it also helps the health of the market. And, you know, when farmers know that money is coming into the market, they're more likely to show up. So it helps with recruitment and retention there. But the team loves working on this stuff. So, you know, the example I gave of the culinary team and the sunchokes, that was a creative challenge that they wanted to solve. Or our work with Food Corps, that's something that they want to get in and dig their hands into. And how can we come up with recipes and, you know, recommendations that kids are going to love? I think our company has done a really great job of making a salad cool and craveable. And how do we also get young kids excited about eating healthy and real food? And it's something that, you know, it's an all hands on deck kind of effort when it comes to social impact, whether it's sustainability, food education, or food access. And to be surrounded by a team that wants to do that is really how we get it done.
I think there's a lot of ways companies can have a positive social or environmental impact without it being super costly. Ultimately, it's developing an awareness, giving your employees an awareness, and empowering and enabling them to make better decisions every day. Our procurement team doesn't just go for the lowest cost. They have the permission to have sustainability metrics as part of the decision-making process when onboarding a new supplier or putting out an RFP. And I think, that's just one example of just giving people the space to make better decisions and do things differently and a little bit more thoughtfully. You'd be surprised with what they come back with. I think one of the statistics I like that for us is we reduced our carbon emissions by 71%, but increased our production by 38%. And so you can see we've sort of decoupled the environmental impact from growth. And so I think we need to get away from a notion that being better to people and being better for the environment always costs more, because it doesn't always cost more. Sometimes it's just about doing something a little bit differently.
Wow. I'm going to turn to audience questions in just a moment, but Kirby, I would just be interested in your answer on this. Sustainability can be associated with consumers who have a lot of money. It's chic to be eco-conscious and have the right water bottle and the right shoes that will biodegrade, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of your work is thinking about how to improve public health, access to reach different kinds of populations, and use Sweetgreen's mission to really reach out to a broader segment of society. Mm-hmm. So help us connect that dot, which is the way that this conversation is not only about people who can afford to buy sustainable products, but rather can be about everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, we recognize that at the end of the day, we sell a $13 salad, and we know that our business cannot be successful in an unsuccessful community. And so that's why we're really thoughtful around the nonprofits that we partner with to bring our mission to life. So, in LA, 2 years ago, we worked with the LA Food Policy Council to renovate what was, a family-owned and operated convenience store in South LA and turned it into more of a food access hub and a safe space. And that was another one where, our team really came and brought their, subject matter expertise, whether it was the design team in terms of the aesthetics of the store, our marketing team in terms of placements of fruits and vegetables, and our, data and engineering team to bring the point of sale operation from a pencil and paper to, something that feels more like 2019, and the store owner can now predict what she needs to order when. The store has now been used for things like book clubs, birthday parties, and all kinds of community building activities. And so I think we think a little bit outside of the box in terms of how can we have an impact on communities and put our profits to good use in ways that are impactful to the neighborhoods and communities that we show up in.
Wow. So from our audience, what are the first steps for a company that wasn't founded with a strong sustainability purpose to improve its supply chain? Maybe Danielle, you could take that?
Sure. I think the first step is to really map your supply chain and understand who are the people who are the factories around the world who are making your products. I think transparency and traceability are key pillars for a sustainable business. And it's not just about your direct footprint in your home office. It's about what's happening in all of your factories around the world. And so that I would recommend is the first step to really understanding your supply chain, and do that work with your suppliers. And then you'll be able to have a better insight into what issues are material to them.
Great. And we've got another question about L'Oreal. At a large and established company like this, how do you get executives to buy in, and not just buy in, but give you money and financial backing to do these kinds of initiatives?
Well, I'm very lucky because our global CEO, Jean-Paul Agon, this is basically his mission in life. He wanted to transform this company to be we've been around for over 100 years, and he sees this as the future of this company, and is making the decisions and doing the things that need to be done in order to help L'Oreal make that transition to ensure we're around for 100 years more. So
it's maybe not such hard work.
Well, I think it's also important to know, I think we're both very fortunate in our roles that we, the leadership is coming from the top down, and that these are the values. But I also think it is 2019, and the world is asking, the consumer is asking for companies to be purpose-led, and for companies to put their money where their mouth is and show that they care about some of the massive problems that are happening in our world, and that they are thinking differently about their supply chain, how they treat their employees, their products. And I think you can easily make that business case kind of no matter what, what industry you're in and kind of what leadership you have, just because the consumer is actually asking for it and they're voting with their dollars.
And I would layer on, like, employees are asking for it too,
Yes.
right? And so if we want to be able to hire the best and the brightest talent out there, this is not, this is a non-negotiable. I can't tell you how many top talent that I end up talking to as part of their interview process, because they want to talk, they want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Spokespeople too are starting to have this. And so it's interesting to see how different people, where they sit, are using their power in different ways, and how basically their values are all aligned to this work. And that's fantastic.
So final thoughts, when you look ahead to the things that are happening on these fronts of sustainability, social impact, what do you think is next? What are the challenges that you're excited to take on? And what are you seeing peers investigate and look into?
Well, I think for me, first and foremost, on the environmental side, of course, is the climate crisis. Ultimately, I come to work every single day thinking about what I can do today to help L'Oreal move the needle on that topic. And ultimately, that topic touches people in a very, very real way. When you think about how women all over the world are disproportionately impacted will be disproportionately impacted by the effects of climate change. Women are our number one consumer. They're 70% of our workforce. They're at least half of our agricultural value chain. And so women are really important to us as a beauty company, obviously. And all of the research points to systemic, social, and structural barriers, making climate change, reacting and adapting to climate change, even harder for women around the world.
Wow.
And so that's something that I think about anyway.
Yeah, and Kirby, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think food access is a massive one for us, and it's something that we are developing a lot of time and resources into, finding additional ways that we can, make healthy food, our product, even more accessible.
Wow, Kirby and Danielle, thank you so much. This was a great conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.